Hello again, and it's time for another project. Today we're going to route out this stained glass bird, and the idea is to route either side of the black lines, removing basically all the coloured area and leaving these thin lines which will act as a barrier for when we come to pour resin in. We're going to basically remove this and replace it with coloured resin. Then once that's all in, we'll see what kind of effect we have. And we might even sand over it all at the end and then pour clear resin over the top, and hopefully we'll be somewhere near. Plus we're going to cut it out with a scroll saw, so this will be circled in the end. Now the way I transfer my images is to basically get your paper template on like so, work out where it's going to go, get it stuck down and put your carbon paper underneath, and literally just draw over the top, and that transfers the image on nicely, as you can see from that. And just think about the things you're doing first. If you notice, I've rotated this bird round to, I've got the knot in there which we're going to route over. There's a nasty little knot there, obviously we're going to route over that, so that'll disappear, and obviously that one there. So just play about with things, don't just put it on there, because you could have that knot in between one of your thin lines and you're going to be in trouble. So once we've routed all this out, like I said, we're going to end up with these little small veins which will act as a leading effect, and we're literally going to pour on either side of that. Okay, to do that we're going to need our CNC bits, which I use. There's different bits out there, profiles, V-grooves, all fancy stuff. Find something that suits you. I'm just happy with these and I've had no issues whatsoever. So CNC bits, they do come with a Dremel size shaft of 3.175. So you require an collet, an adapter reducer collet, 6.35mm, I do apologise, and that literally just slots into there like so, and that's now 1/4 inch, and that just slides into your router, no problem. And the idea is that we're going to go on either side of these lines, leaving that little section in the middle, so it's a trial and error thing with this kind of wood, and then the same again on that side, and hopefully that will act as a barrier when we come to put our resin on either side. Once we've gone around all our lines, I'll use these end milling bits. I use these on all my projects, I'm quite happy with those. They're the same size shaft as the CNC bit, so you literally just remove that, pop that in there. We'll set it to a depth that we've got on a bit of scrap on the side here, and we'll remove all the middle section, and hopefully we've left something behind that we can actually pour our resin onto. And then we'll cut it out with a scroll saw, sand it down, tidy it up, get onto the resin side, and then seeing how it finishes up, we'll either leave it as it is, or we'll sand it down so it's flush with the wood, and then we'll pour clear resin over the top, let it run down the sides, and hopefully we've got something like a decent project. Okay, let's pop our CNC bits in. This is a 30°, this one, and we'll start routing out round these lines. Okay, you can see from that, we've gone around with our CNC bits, done all our lines. We're removing the inside of this, remember, so you just want to route up to the line, never on the line, because obviously that would shrink things down a little. But you can see from that it's come out okay. No, it's not brilliant in places. This is a little section down there, we're off a bit, but we'll sort that out with the end milling bits that we're going to pop on to remove all these inner side. And so far, we haven't lost any of our veins, as I'm going to call these. So we'll pop on the end milling bits, and that's just a simple case of removing the CNC bit like that, and the end milling bits, should I say, they'll just slot in. We'll pop this in the router and just set it to the depth of any one of these. And then we'll just start removing all the inner sections. We'll do that next. Okay, we've made it all the way around. We've not lost anything. Everything's still intact. So far, so good. You can see from that. So we've made our little barrier to separate the two coloured resins in between. Now what I want to do next is literally just cut this out. I'm going to go for the circle on this one. For that I'm going to use a scroll saw. You could use a bandsaw, whatever you're comfortable with. Just a quick one on blades on the scroll saw. They come in 3 basic ones, and I'm going to say basic as in it's what they call a pin blade, and it literally has a pin at both ends. They're your standard blades that come with all your cheaper models of scroll saw, and they literally just clip at the top, on the bottom should I say, and that's it. Blade at the front facing you. You want it smooth on the way down and rough on the way up. That's how the scroll saw cuts, on the downward stroke like that. Now these are okay for a starter if you're doing outers. You could use it on this one today, to be honest. The only downside to these is when you do a lot of in cuts, if you're doing something quite detailed, obviously not on something this size, you do what they call pilot hole, and you will drill a little pinhole if you want to get something really small. Imagine you're cutting out the middle of that eye. Well, that's not going to fit in because of the pins. So then you'd have to use a pinless blade. Obviously called a pinless blade because it has no pins in. And it is literally just like that. Really thin, great little blades. And also you could drill, shall I say, minute hole, and that will feed through, no problem. Obviously, most of your modern saws now, they'll just take pinless blades. Unfortunately for me, with my old Drapper, I have to use these adapter clamps. And they're fantastic, I've got no problem. They're not pain if you're doing a lot of 200, 300 inner cuts, and you're swapping and changing this with the Allen key every time. But for today, nice simple outcut, and I'm going to use what they call a spiral blade. Now this is a different blade again. Now this cuts from any angle. You can go up, down, left, right. There's no turning of the wood. We could start there and literally just feed that round like that, and it's done. Whereas with the other 2 blades, you'd have to start off here, and you'd have to feed it and keep turning and turning and turning like so. But they're not everybody's cup of tea, and you will either love or hate these spirals. I'm quite happy with them, so I'm going to use a spiral blade today. You got a standard pin blade, and then you have your pinless blade. There is other blades, reverse tooth, I'm not too sure, but some have teeth going down as well as up, so they will cut on the downward stroke and the upward stroke. There's all fancy little things out there. It's just finding one that you're happy with. And I'm happy with the spiral, so we're going to use that today. Okay, that's nicely cut out with the spiral blade on the scroll saw. Now we'll just go around and sand it off. Mouse sander, belt sander, anything we can find just to generally tidy up I just want to curve these edges over slightly as well. There is router bits, and I've got them, but I just won't be using them today. Which you would put in your router, and it would route all that out and make a nice curve on it. I'm just going to do it with a mouse sander or something. And then I'll use my Dremel with an engraving bit on. I think these are actually glass engravers, to be honest, but they work fine on wood for me. And I'm just going to go inside like so and give them a general tidy up. We don't need to get too carried away with the sanding down. Remember, we're going to fill this all in with resin, so don't spend hours tidying it all up, because you're literally just going to cover it all with resin. Okay, general sanding down, and then we'll go indoors and start sorting the resin out. Right, that's enough sanding down for me. Everything's nice and smooth. We're all ready nearly to put our resin in. Now I've had a slight change of plan. Originally, we're going to put the resin in, and once it's cured, set, we're going to sand all that down so it's flush with the tops of this wood and the framework, and then pour clear resin over the top. But then you would lose all this feeling effect here, if you know what I mean. So we're still going to go with the resin, but I'm literally going to fill these sections with multicoloured resin, but leave this on show, if you know what I mean. So we can still feel the routing out bit instead of being just one big smooth area. So obviously before that, I'm going to put some linseed oil on, just to darken the wood down. Definitely easier doing it now before the resin goes in than trying to paint in between once the resin's in. You can see how dark it's going to be there, just with that little bit off my finger. And then once that's all nicely dried, the boiled linseed oil, we're going to spray on some clear, just to give it a little bit of shine before the resin go in. I have done one project where we put the resin in, it was nice and shiny, and then when you start spraying your polyurethanes or your sealants on top, it just sends it dull for some reason. So just think ahead and basically get this finished as if it was a finished project with the boiled linseed and the varnish stroke clear, crystal clear, whatever, and then we'll come in. So boiled linseed first. That's just a case of put it on with a brush. You'll see how it will darken the sides down. It doesn't matter if we cover all the area, but you can see from there, like so. You can get right in there. Make sure we get these veined bits, as I'm calling them. And then I'll spray my varnish on, and then we'll come back, and then we'll finally get our resin in. Okay, I'll finish this off. I'll come back when it's all nicely ready for the resin. Okay, you can see from that, this is all ready now. We've got a nice bit of a shine on it. That's because we sprayed some of our sealant on. So 2 or 3 sprays of that, and hopefully that will seal in the side walls of our little veins there, as I'm calling them, and hopefully it won't bleed through. Now you could go a thin coat of resin over this first. You can put your resin in and then paint this black in between, but we're going to leave it as it is. So let's get on with our resin side of things. Now I like to use Amazing Clear Cast. It comes in 2 parts, basically A and B. A being your resin, B being your hardener. And you just get yourself a couple of beakers. I use these party ones for the kiddies. You get 100 for next to nothing. Mark off A and B, and 1 inch worth in there, 2 inches, inch worth, 2 inches. As long as the two are the same, so 1 inch of A, inch of B, mix the two together. Follow the instructions on the box itself, 2 or 3 minutes mixing. And then you can have a couple of drops of your colours. There's plenty of different options out there. I'll just get these cheap things off eBay. A couple of drops in, mix it in, and then we'll start filling this in. I'll mix it off camera and then come back when we're ready to start dropping the resin into our bird here. Okay, that's nicely mixed now. 3 or 4 minutes, that's all it takes. Now it's just a case of dropping in our Colour, we'll go for red first, and it's the same procedure for all the colours, so I won't bore you with that. And it's just literally a couple of drops. You don't need a lot, a little bit goes a long way. So I'm going to 3 droplets in there, and then we basically just give it a mix round, like so. And that will basically be a red. Now if you want it a bit darker, drop another couple of droplets inside. Now we can go a little bit darker on this one because we want it to stand out. And remember, we're not actually doing stained glass, we're not looking through it, so 2 more in there. And I think that'll be plenty for our red. And what we're going to do is literally find out which areas we're going to colour in certain colours. Ever think about it. You could have bits of paper and mark on red, yellows, just so you don't get confused and lost along the way. Also find yourself a nice cocktail stick. I have one of these larger ones, and we can just help that to push it along its way as we start filling in. Okay, let's go for it. We'll start filling this in now with resin. Okay, so there's our first little bit. You will have to help it along with your stick. It soon finds its level, like so. Get right up to them edges. You can always add a little bit on afterwards, that's no problem. We'll just let that settle there for now. Work out where the other ones are going to go. What's a little bit in here. The good thing about these plastic spoons, they have a little lip on the end like that. So if you're not too sure, you could do that and literally just put it in like that. That way you're not going to go over the top. Okay, same again on this bottom one here. Or you can pour it straight in from the beaker, that's no problem. You can see there, look, we've spilt a bit. Do not panic about that, it all rubs off. Like so. You can see there we've spilt some, that's no issue. Just get yourself a nice bit of tissue or something, and we can literally just wipe that away. Like so. Okay, we get the general idea. Not to panic with this red and stuff. Don't get too concerned about it. Okay. As long as the top of the woods are clear. Remember, we're going to fill this all in anyway, so we don't have to get too carried away. Right, and that's it. You can see from that piece there, look, that one's more or less finding its own level. It is a slow process. And we'll just help it like that. Feed that in there. Okay, you can see what's going on. I won't bore you with the rest of it. I'll basically just fill this in now, and we'll come back when it's all done. Okay, that's it. That's all nicely filled in. It takes some doing, it's a slow process, Good thing about resin, you could do the bird one day and put it to one side and then come back another day. There's no big rush to get these little projects done. What you need to be doing though, as you put each coloured section of resin in, is literally just skim over the top with a lighter like so. And basically just do that over the top of the resin. And the reason why we do that is the heat from the lighter will disperse any air bubbles that are in the resin, and they will be in there. So we just skim over the top like so. You can do this 2 or 3 times as you're going along through the project, and you can actually see the air bubbles disappearing. Right, that's it. We've got that all in. All we can do now is put it to one side a good 24 hours, and then we'll come back and see how this project's ended up. Okay, it's the next day. You can see from that everything's solid. No problem with that one whatsoever. Remember, we've already sprayed on our clear sealant. We've put our finish on already, as you can see from there. So that's it. This little project is finished. Now, because of the thickness of the wood, which is a good inch, I will literally just route out a slit in the back for hanging purpose. But as far as this video is concerned, this little project is finished. So there we have it. One bird stained glass effect, I'm going to call this one. It's 12 inches across, routed out with multicoloured resin. Thank you very much for watching.